Well, good afternoon or early evening or late evening or very early morning, depending where you are in this entire world. It is April 24th of the year 2024. So that's 4/24/24. I can't
Nice.
say it any clearer than that. And welcome to Material Issues, episode number 151. We
That's
broke
a
the
palindrome.
150 mark. Yeah. And we're on 151 proof alcohol. I am Mark Hershberger of Pop Detective Records. I'm over here on the East Coast in sunny southern New Jersey, just outside of Philadelphia on a beautiful day. And joining me normally from the West Coast, but he's come into Central Standard Time because he's in Chicago. Mr. David Bash of the International Pop Overthrow Festival going on right now in Chicago, David, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Mark?
I'm fantastic. It's a wonderful Wednesday here in South Jersey. Ches and I have been out in the sunshine having a great time. Yeah, all things good. I'm feeling better. Last week I was with that hard stomach virus and a kidney stone. Two things in one.
Oh, you did? I didn't know about the kidney stone.
Yeah, double mint gum. I thought it was a kidney stone. Doc said no, you get the stomach virus. Then we did the urine check, and oh yeah, there's something in there it shouldn't be there. That's a kidney stone. So you got them both.
You've had kidney stones before, haven't you?
That's my 46th one. Yeah. Yeah.
No, yeah. Knock wood, or whatever this desk is made of. I have not had one yet. So
David is in a popular Chicago massage parlor right now. It's no, he's in a hotel.
I'm actually in a City Suites hotel, which
is
literally right next door to Reckless Records.
Oh, nice.
One of their 3 branches. So
that could be very reckless for you.
I know. I've already been there twice. So, but, why not? If I'm here, I'll go again. But
would you pick up some record store day stuff?
I'm going to show some record store day stuff before we bring on our guest. This is the last thing I got.
Los Nuggets,
Spanish garage, mostly from the 60s, all different Latin American countries, Mexico, Spain, everywhere.
Yeah.
A lot of covers, so a few originals, not many. It's mostly covers. Actually, it might all be covers, but it was just too cool for me not to get.
Oh, very nice.
Let's see what else we got here. Late 60s psychedelic band Gandalf. This is
Gandalf,
legitimate reissue of this album.
I haven't heard them in forever.
Wow. Let's see what else. Nice reissue of the Four Seasons Genuine Imitation Life Gazette. This is an album that polarizes people. Some think it was ridiculous that the Four Seasons tried to do kind of psychedelic pop.
Right.
Other people say, they did it just fine. I wouldn't say it's like an amazing album, but I think they did well. I mean, these are talented guys. The songs are catchy enough. It was outside of their wheelhouse, but I'm glad.
Sometimes you think they were just trying to capitalize on what was going on, but who can blame them? Everybody does.
I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they did it. Here's the prize for me, because this is not a U.S. release.
You got the Taylor Swift.
Yeah, right. Dusty Groove in Chicago, for whatever reason, decided to carry this. The band Grapefruit, their debut album, Around Grapefruit, which is one of the best 60s pop albums ever. Some people thought there's a song on here called Lullaby, which some people thought were the Beatles. In fact, Lennon and McCartney did produce it, but they're not on it. This reissue has bonus tracks. Some tracks from their sessions and a few demos. This is really, really cool. I have to thank Jeremy Morris. Jeremy Morris told me, I didn't even know this was available, but Jeremy Morris told me it was, so I went for it. A mono version of The Birds, the Bees, and the Monkeys, which is really a great mono mix, by the way. And if you're a collector, the only legitimate mono mix on this album is the US. Every other country that did a mono album, it's a fold down. This is from the original mono mix, and nice reissue. Friday music, little expensive, but whatever. Caribou This is a 2 LP Caribou reissue, my favorite Elton John album. It's got a bunch of bonus tracks, mainly like singles and B-sides and some demos. So this is cool. This is the thing that I wanted the most before I knew about
Really? Wow.
Well, before I knew about the grapefruit.
Yeah, but I mean, Elton. I have a certain Elton phase, but I don't like his entire canon. There's so many things.
No, I don't either. Yeah. But I mean, anything up until about 1980, and a couple of things after. But yeah, that's it for me. Yeah. Tinted Windows, of course, the Power Pop supergroup, first time ever on vinyl.
Nice.
So that's certainly nice. Ramones demos, which was reasonably priced. So yeah. So I'm happy about that. And the last thing is a Michigan psychedelic band called SRC. I always love this cover. It is a
psychedelic about that. Never heard it.
Pretty rare record. Some of it's a little bit trippy. Some of it's melodic. And I want to thank Jackpot Records for doing this one and the Gandalf that we showed before. So yeah, so that was that's my record store day haul. I really don't think there'll be anything else. Just a quick word about IPO Chicago. It's going great. Nice. Probably better than it's gone in years and years and years. So I got to thank Eric and everyone at Montrose Saloon for having us back. It's just the perfect venue for us. The bands have been fantastic. The crowds have been excellent. So I'm happy. We have tonight through Friday night and then Saturday afternoon and evening to wind us up.
Nice. So, yeah, you do it well.
A lot of cool stuff. So there we go. So I was mentioning a few record labels here, and that dovetails nicely with our guest, because our guest is the head of a really, really cool record label called Think Like a Key, who does a lot of reissues, mostly early 70s pop and prog. And it's amazing some of the stuff that they've put out. We'll talk a lot about their releases, and also releases some current bands like Nick Frater, the B Positives, Ward White, Ed Rogers, a bunch of really cool people, Anton Barbeau, and his own band, Ex-Norwegian, has records out on Think Like a Key. I mean, it's amazing how much stuff they've been able to put out in such a short time.
Nice.
And the coolest release is one that just came out, Rockin' Horse, early 70s UK power pop band whose song Biggest Gossip in Town is like really well known among the power pop aficionados. And that album is excellent as well. And I have a little bit of a story about one of the band members, but I don't want to keep talking. I want to bring our guest on, and
good. Yeah.
Very, very happy to have him. So would you please give a huge Material Issues welcome to Roger Houdaille.
There he is.
Hey, Roger. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Great shirt.
And yeah, he's got a great shirt on, and David even pronounced his name correctly. We were going that pre-show exactly. I mean, what do most people when most people look at your last name, Roger? What's the usual pronunciation you get if they don't know?
Yeah, if they don't pick up that's like a real French last name, it'll be Houdaille.
That's exactly what I said. Hey, great, we've got Roger Houdaille on the show.
The worst.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought it was, and I spoke with Roger on the phone before the show and asked, like, how do you pronounce? And I mean, I've known Roger for a long time, although we never had the occasion. I never had the occasion to pronounce his name.
Yeah.
Here's the funny thing. We did a Think Like a Key showcase at IPO Liverpool last year.
A year ago.
And Ex-Norwegian was part of it, and other people on the label. I was really looking forward to it, and that's when I got COVID and missed the last 2 days of IPO Liverpool, and that included the Think Like a Key showcase. Thank God Rena, my wife, was able to run it, and so she had actually seen Roger more recently than I had, because it's been a while since we'd actually seen each other. We just corresponded online.
Oh yeah, I actually don't remember. It would have been an IPO quite a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah, quite a while ago. I remember we were going to do one, and then COVID hit, and so that got canceled. And then again, I missed the showcase. But yeah, so.
Well, I mean, if you look closely at the last name, if you think of the word Marseille, you would get die.
Well, I always pronounce it Marseille. You mean it's not Marseille?
I say Marseille. I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to be logical about all this because it blows me away just looking at it. I'm a name person, and I'm like, I probably would have gotten it on about the 7th or 8th attempt if he would have said nope.
I actually do detect a bit of an accent. Are you from outside the U.S. or are you from the U.S.?
I think it's a Florida accent. I've been told.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's
no. It's not it wouldn't be a foreign accent. But yeah, I have like a Southern drawl. It was actually Ed Rogers, who you mentioned. He has his show. He interviewed me once, and he said I reminded him of Tom Petty, which I took as a compliment because he said he interviewed Tom Petty. So I'm like, okay.
Now that you're saying all that, I'm starting to hear it. That happens a lot too.
I thought you were just putting on a faux Norwegian accent because
this is probably what it sounds like. Yeah. Authentic.
He's got to play the game. Got to play the game. It's
so anyway, you'd been a musician for a long time with Ex-Norwegian and other bands, I'm sure. But what prompted you to start a label?
I guess a bit of a downtime and always being involved in that aspect of releasing, whether it was my own music or helping friends release music. But it just sort of happened. I had one of the first releases we did was the Kaleidoscope Fairview Park. What happened was I found the footage of them performing in Beat Club, which had never been seen before.
Wow.
They gave me a preview of it, and I'm like, oh wow, it would be wonderful to do something with it. But it actually happened on Facebook. I posted like a clip of this. I was like, look what I found. And then next thing you know, my friend Fernando Perdomo put me in touch with Peter Daltrey from Kaleidoscope, and then we built on this release. And that was really the first time I got involved with releasing other people's music that I didn't know personally, not alone a legend, and at least for me, like, one of my heroes.
What year was this?
This was 2000. I'm 2020.
So the label's only been around for 4 years now.
Sort of. I mean, really, 2021 was when that came out and things picked up. But this was the end of 2020 when I was preparing this release. And then there's a few other releases, and it went from there. And it was going to be a reissue label. Like you mentioned, we do a lot of reissues, and that was what I wanted to do. And then Joe Kane, the Poppermost, he got in touch with his album, which was Hits to Spare. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. So I was like, all right, and I was like, well, this is it's not a reissue, but it sounds like it could be a reissue. So, okay. But then next thing I know, Novelty Island, Tom wrote to me. Actually, Joe gave me like a stream of his music, and I'm like, why are you sending me this? Like, I mean, I'm hearing it. I'm like, yeah, this is awesome record, but why are you sending? I thought he was just sending me a link. He's like, no, he's looking for someone to release it. And I was like, I just thought this was something not only released, but huge. So it kickstarted. Then other bands reached out, and then it became this hybrid of a reissue. And
it gets in your blood, man. You do one and you have some success with it, and you're like, that was a lot of fun. That was pretty cool. And then you do a second one, and then people start contacting you, and you just got rolling with it, man. Trust me, 10 years from now, you'll be like, how the heck did I do this?
Mark knows of what he speaks because he too is a label owner.
I know.
Just so for the people who are watching, Kaleidoscope was a late 60s psychedelic pop band. The first song I ever heard by them was Jenny Artichoke, which was on a compilation. And as soon as I heard that, it was like, I got to know more. And then I found out about the 2 albums and some of the other stuff. But the main guy is Peter Daltrey, no relation to Roger, as far as I know. you or the Who lead singer, but they were a great band, and I know he's he's still recording stuff with you, and he's on Facebook. He's very, very active, which is very cool. Little story about Joe Kane. I got to digress here. The Popper Mo. Well, Joe had played IPO in a few different bands, and I'm not sure which band it was, but at the time, but he did a set also on the backstage of the Cavern, and he had some CDs for sale. And one guy said to him, "I'll buy your CD if you sign my arse." And he did, like right on stage. He signed the guy's arse right there. Talk about a guy who really wanted to make a sale.
I know, yeah. Joe's a great guy. Oh my God, we had a blast in Liverpool. We missed you, David, that you weren't out and about, because that was a crazy experience. I mean, I'm from Miami Beach. I grew up, spent almost all my time there, and Liverpool is kind of like a bizarre Miami Beach for me. It was like, it's a port town, and then there's some similarity there, and it's just so different from the rest of the country.
That's for sure.
Wild. It's like it reminded me of Miami Beach in the in the 2000s, the real party era. Of course, a different style of party goes on in Liverpool, but especially by where the Cavern is. But I invited, it was a mix. It was a cool hybrid. Well, Ex-Norwegian played, my band, played there, and it was a hybrid band. None of my Miami guys were able to make it, so one friend in San Francisco, I told him, "Hey, you're on the stage if you can, take a plane ticket," and he did, Kevin, and so he played lead guitar. I had Nick Frater, that's when I connected with him.
One of the best pop artists, contemporary best pop artists.
Also, yeah, great. I mean, just talented guy. So he came on board, and we're talking about releasing his album at the same time. I was like, well, hey, you want to play keys? He's like, well, I'm playing with 6 other bands or something. I don't know. He was busy. He was a busy guy. Those nights. And Joe Kane, I got him on board on bass. And then we had Joe Montag, who I'm not sure if you're aware of, excellent drummer.
I've heard his name,
he has the All You Need Is Drums sort of podcast or a recording podcast about the 60s. And I was working with him, also introduced from Joe Kane. We did the Houdaille release, which he teamed up with the DC5 ghostwriter Ron Ryan, and they did a whole new album of stuff. So I'm digressing, but all these guys came, so it was a bit of a super group, really.
But you did have one Miami pal there with you, Jim Camacho, but did he not play with you?
Well, Jim didn't play. Well, he came up to sing one song, yeah. But we did have Fernando.
And that's true. How could I forget? Yeah.
Jim invited him over, so that was a bit of a surprise. He kind of joined us on stage, and just for background information, we went to high school together. We were like the only kids listening to King Crimson and Family and all this weird stuff. This is late '90s, and so anyway, we grew up musical brothers of some sort. So he's been a big part of Ex-Norwegian recordings in the past and stuff. So it was really special for all of us to be there at the time in Liverpool with all that brings.
Fernando is a big part of everything. I mean, all roads seem to lead to Fernando.
Oh, man.
I dubbed him the Zelig of pop. If you ever saw the movie Zelig, it's like, any picture you see of anybody, Fernando's in there. If you look back to the Beatles, there's probably some Beatles era picture with Fernando in it.
Yeah, he's a time traveler. He's back. He's everywhere. Oh man. Well, but you know what? The guy's talented. He can adapt and do anything and just play everything. He's just a talented guy across the board, and that's why he's everywhere. I mean, there's a reason for it.
He was in Liverpool for the IPO, so he played along with us. So anyway, so I don't know where we were at, why we went into the IPO Liverpool, but yeah.
You mentioned Joe Kane, and I told you about his experience.
So he was a part of it. and he was a blast on stage. Oh, he was so funny. So.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. So how did you? Let's go back a little bit. How did you get into music, becoming a musician? Were your parents musicians, or was this all on your own?
I guess on my own. Obviously, there was music around, but I got into music much later than other people. I mean, everything was kind of delayed in a way, but once I got into it, it got kind of serious.
Apparently,
I was always very creative. I would write when I was a young kid. I would write I'd get bored of things, so I'd have the almanac, and then I'd be like, oh, let me start writing my own almanac, or start writing maps. I'd start drawing my own countries and my own. But that was like pointless. But then it got to music, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm tired of this. I'm gonna write my own song. And it's like, oh, okay, that actually could work. So that was the start of when I discovered that I could do my creativity with music. It wasn't an instant, and I still don't really consider myself a musician, to be honest. But I like music, and I know what I like too. So that kind of helps me. So.
Were you a record collector right away, or did that take a while?
You could say that. I mean, it started with the Beatles, I guess, would be technically it started with Jive Bunny and the Master Mix.
Oh, okay. That's one we don't hear too often.
Yeah, not too often.
Well, I just heard it the other day. I'm like, oh yeah, this was the song. I mean, when I heard that, I probably heard that for like 3 months nonstop, which is kind of great. But that was my introduction to 50s music. I never heard the originals. That's how I heard Everly Brothers and everything that's mixed on there. So that was so that's what I was really, I think, liking. I didn't like the techno aspects of the mixes, but I got into that, the Beatles, but I went from Beatles to Badfinger. So that kind of, I skipped everything else. So I kind of got into the more obscure, the more niche stuff, more interesting stuff, honestly, and then it just kind of went crazy from there. So.
And that's interesting. So at what age were you getting into the Beatles and then say Badfinger? Were you in your early teens? And
like 12, I guess. Like
12. All right. So that's why I don't know how old you are. You're obviously half David and I's age at least. So you're talking.
I don't know. I'm 42, I think.
Yeah, you're half our age.
But, yeah, I'm turning 85 in a few months.
So you're in the 90s, I guess. You were collecting this stuff, which is.
I still remember. Well, I mean, this was '87 when the Beatles came out on CD. I remember with my mom going into a record store. She'd buy singles. We'd be in record stores often, and I remember the poster of the Beatles on CD and all the albums, and that like it intrigued me. And a few years later, I was really starting to get into the music and the aspect of collecting, and then eventually, that's why it kind of just transforms into wanting to put together the releases and doing all that. So
that's just kind of why I was just trying to get your mindset as to somebody who's that age in the 90s. And how you get into what you got into. I mean, the Beatles and Badfinger, they're it's an obvious, stepping stone and progression. But when you start getting into some of the more prog stuff and the prog pop things, that's not as obvious for most people. They don't go right to that from big.
Yeah. What is it about prog and prog pop that really does it for you? Because a lot of pop fans, that's one place where they don't really like to go. I go there a lot, but a lot of power pop people, it's just they think it's too indulgent, and But what is it that the prog does for you?
I think it's a bit of a with prog, I'm also very selective. I wouldn't consider myself also a big prog fan. I like the prog pop kind of aspect.
Right.
So I think it's just the arrangement, like stuff that really kind of hits you and changes around a lot. I don't really like repetition. So with that said, it's a weird mix, right? Because pop is a lot of repetition, it's a lot of nice, catchy, stuff, and then so prog kind of twists that around. But then when you mix it to, and you still have the elements of both, that does it for me.
Yeah, I think about bands like two of my favorite prog pop bands, Camel and Caravan. I love Barclay James Harvest, for example. There are quite a few from that early era that I'm really into. And you're right. I mean, it is a really nice mixture of the sweet vocals, the nice harmonies, and then sometimes extended solos and things like that. But it works. It really does.
Yeah, well, it's like Terry Draper used to say from Cloud 2. He'd say anything worth doing is worth overdoing. So many of the prog pop bands would do it in a pop way, then just overdo it a little bit.
Exactly.
I assume you're a fan of Cloud 2.
I am a casual listener. I don't know too much.
All right, you got to go pick
all right, now, yeah.
Right now,
you definitely need to find all their albums right away.
Go get them now. David and I will both attest to that. Yes. Yeah.
I know.
But that's true.
Probably hope their second album is the most prog pop of their albums.
Yeah, indeed.
I'm still stuck in 1972 somewhere. I haven't gotten into class.
Oh yeah, he's got 5 more years to go to get to hope. Yeah.
Still early stuff.
Hey, we're always representing the bands we love. It's great, but so I mean, so you're obviously, like you said, you and your friend in Miami growing up in that area in the 90s, you're pulling out some of these acts that you're listening to and collecting. That had to make you a little bit of an oddball.
Coming from other oddballs like us. So
coming from other oddballs.
No disrespect intended.
Yeah, really.
We're all in this together, guys.
Yeah.
It was fun. I mean, it might, we would meet people, we would meet others, but it was just, I don't know, it was weird. But the 90s was a fun time, I think, to collect. There was no vinyl, barely no vinyl. Well, cheap vinyl, but like no new vinyl, right? So it was CDs. So that's why I still prefer CDs, honestly. I kind of got into CDs and probably because of being from that era where the reissues were just starting, and also that's why I like the reissue thing. And then the extra tracks, and sometimes I would love all the extra bonus unreleased tracks more than now. Like, I can't believe they never released it, and to this day that happens. I can name you there's this awesome Jethro Tull song that came out like a few years ago, and I'm like, why wasn't this on the album? There's several good ones that they never released. Well, to do a little plug for an upcoming reissue, I think you have this one, Dave.
I do indeed. Thank you for sending me that.
This one this is the Tremolos reissue we're putting out of Master, which I think is a great pop. It's kind of like that Badfinger kind of vibe. And there's 2 unreleased songs on there. I mean, they've been released. This isn't the first time they're appearing, but they were released like in the late 90s. I'm like, wow. I mean, these are great songs. So it's kind of crazy what was being dug up in the 90s as bonus tracks. I mean, a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, and it's good that you brought up that album, because this is something that's always been a point of contention with me. I mean, there's certain bands, especially in the 60s, but even into the 70s, that were considered singles bands, and their albums were always disrespected. I think of a band like the Hollies, for example, and I think of an album like Evolution, especially the UK version. That is a great album, but you never see it on anybody's top lists.
Yep.
Because the Hollies are a singles band. And I hate reviews that say, about bands, well, a greatest hits is all you need. It's like somebody wrote that about the Association. And it's like, that's just bullshit.
Lord.
That is bullshit. I mean, Along Comes the Association, Birthday, Waterbeds in Trinidad. Those are excellent albums, but critics never get, because they weren't cool. The Tremolos are another, the Tremolos had some good albums, but nobody knows about that because all people think about is their hits. And Master is just one of those albums that fell below the radar. So when labels like yours reissue them, It's really a joy, and people need to know about this stuff because these albums have great tracks on them that people just need to hear, but they didn't back in the day.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, definitely a very overlooked record, and like you said, the singles band aspect hurt it. I mean, if we think back, the Kinks' Village Green was not a success when it first came out. Also, probably due because they were still considered a singles band at that point. Thankfully,
yeah, it took a little while, but finally the Kinks got some cred.
Oh, yeah.
Same with maybe the one album that epitomizes that is Odyssey and Oracle.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because when that by the Zombies, because when that came out, nobody really cared. Even though Time of the Season had been added to it, it still was just overlooked. And then suddenly a couple of critics decided, oh, this is good. Let's tell the world about that. And now, of course, it's had a renaissance for years. Other similarly good albums haven't quite had that benefit. A lot of it's just luck of the draw. I mean, Don't get me wrong, Odyssey and Oracle is a great record and it deserves the renaissance, but so do a lot of other things that haven't gotten it. So this, you never know. You keep putting out records like that, and eventually somebody's going to hear it, and before you know it, Shindig is doing a 5-page spread, and then Record Collector is, and then suddenly Rolling Stone is writing about him, and then it becomes
Oprah starts talking about you on her album of the month club, and you never know.
Yeah, you're going to see Oprah holding Tremolo's Master in one hand and Rockin' Horse, Yes It Is, in the other.
Roger, when you started the process of Think Like a Key and reissue your very first project, how did you figure out what to do? I remember the very first time that I went through it, and I sat there going, what do I do? There's a lot of people you talk to, but how did you figure it out?
It's been in the making for a while, I suppose. So, it wasn't too mysterious, but it was the first time. It was the first time that, like I said, I'm working with someone I didn't know, and then what gets. I want to be very proper, so then you get into, we got to do a formal agreement and all this and that. So that's the part I don't enjoy, and that's the part that I have the most, learning to do. But so far it's been good. I mean, I'm pretty straightforward with everything. I want things to be as simple and as easygoing as possible. No one needs extra headaches. So.
And the excitement of putting something together and then holding it when it finally all comes to fruition is you never forget that. It's
but it's been a very busy couple of years. So I've sort of made it into, like, I've desensitized myself a bit with that feeling. Now it's actually a bit nerve-wracking because it's like I immediately spot like a typo or something that I don't like. I'm like, oh, so there's that element when I get very nervous getting the stock in and reviewing it. And there's been some crazy issues lately. So, but I know what you mean though. It's that feeling is something else. Yeah.
What have you noticed over the last, say, 4 to 5 years that you've been doing this from when you started to now? Has the process of graphics and mastering and then manufacturing become easier in today's world? Because I haven't been in it for a couple of years now as far as that whole process. Or has it become tougher because there are less plants doing it as far as, obviously CD is kind of a tough thing, but vinyl, even they can't keep up with demand and it gets to be difficult. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, to answer the whole question, it's been I don't even know how to describe it, but it's been just I couldn't have an answer how it's been. It's been crazy,
Mm-hmm.
Good and bad. For example, the vinyl problem, I think we've reversed it already, where now we were getting every week. I get promotional for vinyl. When a couple of years ago, it was like you had to beg the plants to press your record. Now it's like, here, please press records.
Really? Is that the case? That surprises me because a lot of people are still putting out records. How is it that they're looking for business?
Well, a lot of these companies did expand. So I think, they bought out the plants that hadn't been operating and stuff, mostly in Europe, but also in the States. And so I think now they're very well equipped to handle your order, and they can use some extra business. But you're right. There's plenty of releases going on. It's interesting. But and then everything else has been crazy. And I try to kind of inform the artists I work with and stuff, like how unpredictable things are right now. And so right now one thing can be good, and then a few months later, like shipping sending records to England has completely bankrupted the label this year. Well, not that dramatic, but
it's true, especially if you're dealing in vinyl. It's very expensive to send it anywhere outside. It's expensive to send it in the U.S., but let alone,
COVID really, that hit the business really hard. Suddenly shipping prices doubled or even tripled.
Yeah.
And sellers, for example, on Discogs or eBay and everything, a lot of people aren't buying the stuff now because the shipping, you find a $5 record, $30 shipping. It's like, what the hell? I'm not going to do that.
And doesn't, if that went to the seller or something, but no, it's just going to shipping, so you don't even have that feeling like, well, I'm supporting something. No, it's just a very expensive fee. And it's complicated. There's also in the EU, there's the where they have to pay. I think someone actually bought a record on Discogs, like I had it really discounted. It's an overstock. And but then not only was their shipping, expensive, they had to pay like double for the customs on a $5 CD. Like,
that's true. That's true. They have to pay. They have to pay a lot sometimes, which we don't, fortunately. But they have to, on top of the shipping, they have the customs fees.
And that's terrible. A promotion, sending out discs and stuff. It's not like, unsolicited sending out there. Now it's very like you have to have the person request it because they may have to pay a fee, so they gotta.
Right.
They may not want it, and I don't want. Last thing I want to do is send out CD to have someone have to pay the fee and then or reject it, and then it just is.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, you wish there would be something that postal services would all agree on nationwide or worldwide. That this is music. This is the arts. This is for people to enjoy. We're going to deliver this for a much less cost than music, books, things like this. I know you can do media mail here in the U.S., which is cheaper. Takes a couple of years to get there via media mail, but that should just be a worldwide thing. If it's arts related, let's change. I'm gonna have to start my own postal service. Gosh darn it.
I look at the roster of your reissues, and it's really mind-boggling of some of the acts that you've gotten a hold of and who've agreed to let you put out their record. I'm looking here at the website right now. Michael D'Albuquerque, Blossom Toes, Andy Bound. Who else do we have here? The Crazy World of Arthur Brown, Dr. Strangely Strange, Flash, Ollie Halsall. Of course, John Howard, Kaleidoscope, The Mirage, a band that people really need to know about. Nirvana, not the Nirvana, of course. Os Mutants, Pato, again, Peter Daltrey and Kaleidoscope, Rockin' Horse, which we mentioned, Secondhand, St. John's Wood Affair, The Sin, The 23rd Turnoff, Unicorn, another great.
They're giving me a headache now.
No, I'm sorry. All of these people. How in the world? I just look at that. How in the world are you doing this?
I don't know. And this is. People don't realize. I'm doing this on my spare time, which is getting less and less. So I don't know. It just, like I said, it's the universe conspiring against me. It just, it's people, things just keep happening. Right now, I literally said I'm not releasing anything this summer or whatever. And then I had Super 8 contact me. And then I had the new Rogers and Butler ready going. And before that, it was the Ward White contacted me. And I was like, no, I don't want to release anything. And then, I hear the album. It's really good. I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do it. But
I love that.
Oh, so you got the new Rogers and Butler coming out on Think Like a Key, huh?
Yeah, well, I hope so. We're working on that. We're putting that together. It was recorded in Abbey Road. It's
yeah. And Steve doesn't live too far from me here. Yeah.
Oh, awesome!
I know Steve well. Yeah, great guy.
When you contact some of the people from back in the day, are they usually really surprised? Just do a lot of them think, does anyone really care about us? I mean, is this a joke?
There's a bit of that. It depends, but I think the artists that I end up working with, yeah, we're kind of on the same page. Like, we're just excited that anyone cares, but we, my pitch to them is usually, we'll do a really nice job. It's a labor of love, so there's that element to it. And some of these acts or artists, it's been a long time. Like it's not like I came out of the blue and pitched them. Like Flash, I've been in touch with those guys since 2000s. I actually had the fan page, back in 2000. So
wow,
that like So I was kind of they knew about me, I knew about them, and we talked about. Well, of course I knew about them, but we were actually in contact. In fact, I talked to Peter Banks once on the phone.
Oh, nice.
And that was a crazy conversation. It was crazy stuff.
Was it?
But, and so, but that was probably the most complicated release I've done. It was very, very difficult. It's amazing, with some of these older bands, there's still feelings there, and so it can get a little complicated, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think I like to say I'm probably the only person on the planet that could have put that out with everyone sort of communicating with each other, because they didn't, they wouldn't have wanted to do it if I think anyone else came to that with that idea.
No, I think what's important is that, and I know if I were a musician, I'd feel this way. What's important is that they know you're a fan. They know that you really care about their music. You're not in it to make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
You're in it because you love their music. You want to see it reissued. You want to do a good job on the package. I'm sure they appreciate that immensely.
Definitely, I think so. Well, right now you mentioned Michael D. Albuquerque, which is, I think, another case. I probably talked to him first 2005 or something, and he sent me a few discs and everything. It was very cool, including that album, his album. And that was that. And then his brother's very active in a Facebook group for the guitarist Ollie Hazell, right, from Pato.
Yeah.
Who, Think Like he has put out a lot of things related with Ollie. And so this is kind of part of that, because he's all over Michael's album. But I actually, like, when I started the late 2020, 21, I had my list of dream projects, and, I've actually made most of those. And so I think I had Michael's name on there. And so, through his brother, I communicated, I pitched an idea, hey, let's do something with his records. They've never been reissued or anything. Did not go. So it was about 2 years of kind of then. And then what happened was I've teamed up with a very, very skilled engineer who he's a sort of anonymous, goes by the name Professor Stoned. And so he's, again, this is another thing that just happened. Like I was already trying to scale down the label, and then I team up with him, and I hear what he can do to these old recordings, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So we started looking, what can we release? That's the hardest part, is to find what you can actually release, license, and things. That part can get very.
That was gonna be my next question. But in a lot, you have to go to some of these major labels to license these things, don't you? And they're not always the most cooperative people in the world.
No, they're not. Unfortunately, I mean, most of what I haven't been able to release or well, let me phrase it this way: the stuff I have released, like by Dr. Strangely Strange, Flash, Sean Phillips, all of those were because the major labels just didn't, who owned their original masters didn't want anything to do with a small little reissue. So I was like, well, what's the alternative? Let's find some BBC sessions. Let's find some live things. Let's do something. And so that's how that's how those projects came about, was this sort of stonewall you get, particularly in the United States. I think in the UK it might be a little different, might be easier. In the United States, I don't know, Universal Music doesn't know what they even have, honestly.
Right.
Well, that fire that took place destroyed a lot of stuff too.
And there's that, but they don't really have a good log of at least anything that I think they can easily access. And in the UK, I think because there's been a lot more reissues, they do have a better thing. But they send me to the US office, so it just never worked out, unfortunately. There's a lot of great stuff like the shirts.
Oh yeah.
Five Arthur's band dying to put out their 70s catalog, which has not really been reissued. But
it hasn't been reissued well, and went out of print in about 5 minutes. So
yeah. So
that'd be a great project. Yeah.
You could drop a little exclusive teaser that there might be a bit of a shirts reunion going on. So
yeah, you know what? That would be great. They played IPO. I want to say 2011 in New York, and that was a wonderful show. And of course, Rome 56.
Yeah.
Arthur LaMonica's current band, who you've released albums by, they've also played IPO. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Arthur and Kathy, great people.
Yeah, it's great to work with all these guys. Arthur's story, I met him through Ex-Norwegian. We covered one of the Shirts songs, "Well, Tell Me Your Plans," and I think I was just like, part of my marketing strategy was like, okay, because we did a lot of covers on that record. It was like, okay, let me send on Twitter the song to, that was the trend at the time, right? Like tag the artist, because you could do it. You could tag the artist and send them the cover. So I did that, and that's how I connected with Arthur, because he loved our version. And then next thing I know, we were playing New York, and he was he was in the crowd, and yeah, it was great. So we connected, and then once I started the label, we got in touch. Well, I guess I should mention something. Come to think of it, another reason why the label started was I did the Jimmy Campbell album.
Yep.
I did the tribute album with Jimmy Campbell, which the idea I thought would be easy is if like Ex-Norwegian was the host band, but I wanted to have guests. In fact, I don't sing a song on there. So I was just arranging it and getting all these people involved, and that was a very cool experience, which is how I connected with Joe, and I kind of connected with Arthur again, and then his Rome 56 are on there, and so many, John Howard. I mean, it just that kind of is the genesis in a way of what Think Like a Key became, where it's like the mix of the old with the new,
and was it through Jimmy Campbell that you ended up doing the Rockin' Horse album?
Sort of. Well, this ties back to the licensing question and all that. Someone who, most like the Mirage, a lot of these reissues are actually through Cherry Red Records in the UK. Mm-hmm. They have an extensive catalog. So it's kind of like it's kind of fun. You're kind of looking, all right, what can we pick out from there? And they're very cool with me. We've licensed quite a bit, so I guess they're pretty lenient. So like the idea for the 7-inch series, which we're doing, I mean, they're very limited runs, but that keeps all the costs kind of lower, right? So that's the idea, is to kind of create, a series, but not you can't afford to do a full pressing on these things. That's just the reality. But it's fun to do the little niche and the little collectible singles, and so Cherry Red helps a lot with finding stuff to license. So Rockin' Horse is through Cherry Red.
But there's a special feature about your version of Yes It Is, and I thought this was really cool when you told me. Let everyone in on this.
All right, we can get into the secrets.
Oh, is that supposed to keep that quiet? I'm sorry.
No, not really. But one thing I do, like I mentioned, I teamed up with Professor Stone, who, if you're not familiar with his work, check out his blog. That's what he does, professorstone.com, just Prof Stone. And you know, I mean, it's a little sacrilegious for some because, for example, he's done the Beatles, he's remastered those, and I mean, he brings out all this stuff that you just don't hear and you don't even realize it's in there. So, and I know that gets said a lot with stuff, but anyway, you know, but the complaint some may have is, well, it's too clean or too modern sounding, right? In fact, one of the secondhand reissues, there was a interesting harsh critic who complained about that. It's like, it sounds like it's from 2000, which it doesn't. I mean, it still sounds 60s, but to his ear, it sounded too clean, which I get. So anyway, but so a credit to his talent is that we look for stuff to release that he can like really improve on the quality. So with Rockin' Horse, something that is annoying to this day, because unfortunately the record label mentioned they keep reissuing the song with the same master, which has a huge scratch right in the beginning.
This is Biggest Gossip in Town, which is their most well-known song.
So and it kicks off the CD, so it's like yeah. Like, and I never heard it because everyone would tell me, "Oh yeah, there's a skip and there's a skip." I thought it literally would skip.
Right.
I guess they're saying it's a record skip, because my inside source said, well, these were taken from very good quality records and they were mastered properly and all that, but the masters we receive most of the time from anyone, even the ones from the major labels, they suck. So, you know, we end up having to hunt down some records. So in the case of Rockin' Horse, all the budget went into acquiring the original record, which are very expensive, but we were already in it. And we waited, like, it was supposed to come out 6-7 months ago. I had everything licensed back then, but we were hunting the record because we just didn't want to have that scratch in there. And so we did a fresh needle drop, which I think the other CD versions are anyway.
They are.
But we did a fresh one, and I think it sounds definitely better without the scratch, obviously. But in general, I think it sounds pretty good. It's a little punchier, a little more cleaner, I guess. But it's originally, if you're not familiar with that album, I mean, that's like the Beatles 1971, how they would have sounded, like early Beatles 1971, and the recordings equipment or the studio, I mean, it was kind of demo-ish anyway, so you can only get such a sound out of it. It's not going to sound like Who's Next or something from that ear. It sounds the opposite. Very, you know, but that's part of the charm. But you know, I like the fact that we can clean up some of the stuff, and that ties back to the Michael D. Albuquerque release, where what sold him was I had Professor Stone do a needle drop. I was like, see what you can do with this one. And the second song of that album is a song they did live in the studio, and it's like acoustic guitar and him singing for most of it, very like, and so he makes it sound like it came from the master tape. So that sold Michael, and he's like, okay, let's do it.
I might as well let the cat out of the bag. Full disclosure, I am Professor Stone. Call me.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, sure.
Ironic, given that I've never even smoked a joint in my life. No, it's not me, people.
Roger, if you had a dream reissue, do you have something in the back of your head that, like, God, if I could just do this, then everything would be awesome?
Well, yeah, definitely. I have one actual release which was ready to go, and I'm still trying to figure out how I can make it happen because it got very complicated. So we'll see. That's kind of like my final like must release item. But I think there's too many to answer your question. I'm sorry.
But you don't want to disclose what it is yet. Because you want to
obviously, he's keeping this one under tight wraps right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Without naming names, unless you want to, have there been any people you've approached? I'm not talking about labels. Have there been any people you've approached it and said, no, not interested?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, nothing, but I don't know. I don't think it actually got to the approaching part, but yeah, I mean, I don't.
Well, and there's probably been situations. Yeah, there's probably.
I don't want you don't. I don't want to put you on the spot. It just seems so. There, I mean, there are some. You look at the history of this business, and there are some people who have just been very proprietary about their stuff. You look at Don Kirshner, for example. You look at Dave Clark, who for years has not wanted their albums reissued, and there are no legitimate, except for that greatest hits that he allowed. Yeah. No legitimate Dave Clark 5 albums been reissued. The Archies albums, which I know are not considered like Godhead by people, but they're good records. There's no legitimate reissue. There's a greatest hits that Kirshner allowed out, and I know he's dead, but his people are still not allowing those albums to be legitimately reissued. So there are people who are just proprietary, and then I'm sure there are other people who's like, well, how much money is in it for me? And when you tell them, well, this is a labor of love, it's like, well, then, forget it. Which is ridiculous because, again, these people are going to be forgotten. All of them are going to be forgotten. And then some of the people who said no, they're going to regret. They're going to go to their deathbed saying, I should have done this.
Mm-hmm.
I know. Yeah. I hate to think that, but yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm glad to say, most people are in the category of just happy to see stuff happen. So, especially now. But yeah, no, I know. There's the other type, the ones who still think there's 10.
There's a pot of gold somewhere waiting for them.
Yeah. There are people who think there's a pot of gold or there isn't. And then with Dave Clark, there probably would be, but he's rich enough where he just doesn't. He just wants to be able to tell the world, you can't have it. It's mine.
And partly that. I mean, something that I've started to experience now, which, growing up, I never understood that sort of mentality where, like, why would you not want to have something released and all that? But I understand. I mean, I don't share the feeling, but I understand it now. I mean, I could see how someone thinks, like, they'll hear it and they just hear the mistakes or the it doesn't match to contemporary standards. So there was some of that, and in the archival releases, obviously it can be a little sensitive. Dr. Strangely Strange, I dug up quite a few things that were not really excellent sounding, but we got it to the best ability. And they realized the historic importance of it. These are songs that were never played, for example, on a studio album. So it only existed here. So they kind of ended up giving me the thumbs up, but I got in there with my contact saying, hey, these guys are tough, and it's like, and then, I had the idea to do the best of Dr. Strangely Strange. And they're like, well, we've had this idea before and it would have to kind of look like this. And they gave me a track list. I'm like, no, that's not quite, but it's like, no, but they're not going to budge, it has to be very democratic. So yeah, there's a lot of quirks, which can be funny or fun. Sometimes it can be a real pain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would do, but Scaries, I probably would do twice as much if things were a lot more easier in that department. But
which is astounding given how much you have done. I mean, given all these releases, the current stuff and the reissues that you've done in 4 years' time, I can't think of any other label who's done quite as much and has put as much care into it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't give it too much thought, like looking at what's going on. I always feel like it's not enough, which is what.
Well, that's actually very good to know, because that means that we can expect some more really good stuff from you. And that goes back to my earlier thing that we talked about off air. Before we brought you on, I was talking about the record store days stuff that I had accumulated. Are you planning on getting involved in record store day releases at some point?
It depends. We did submit one. As people probably know, the record store day is a bit I mean, there's a lot to it. It's not just like, okay, here's the record. I mean, they need it very well in advance. You have to pitch it, and then they technically want X amount of copies made, which is usually way beyond what produces. So that's the biggest snag for doing it. But with that said, I did have one release approved, but then it didn't feel like it was going to be a good idea, so we pulled it off. And I know in the UK it's a little different, and so there might be something that comes out, but it's really comes down to the licensing. It's very difficult to find something that would be at the record store day level. I mean, maybe that John Bromley Sing album might have been a good choice, because that seems to be getting popular. But yeah, it's hard to know if some of these albums would be worthy of that's just the truth, you know. So
no doubt some would. I mean, I think Rockin' Horse, for example, would have been a great one to do.
There was a Spanish label who just put it out like.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about.
That's the reason why. Yeah, it's like, well, we'll do CD. I've been kind of focusing on CD, like the Tremolos Master is a good example, where, I mean, that could have used a reissue, you know, on LP, but you know, I don't know. It's not a rare record, you know. It's like there's not real collectability in some of these records. Same with Michael D. Albuquerque's album. Like, you know, you can still get the copies pretty cheap. So
here's an idea, because the Jimmy, I mean, anything related to him, like those 3 albums, of course, his 3 solo albums, of course.
Oh yeah.
Would be nice to have vinyl reissues of.
Those would be, Half Baked would definitely be I think a good choice.
Yeah.
Those are unfortunately, you know, tied up in Universal, so hard to
Universal
get going.
Yeah.
Especially, and then for a record store day release, I think they kind of do their own things. So I don't think they would license that out for that type of release.
There will be something at some point. I have a feeling.
You know, I keep not looking for it, and it keeps coming to me. So yeah, we'll see what's next. I mean,
what they say, when you don't look, it's when you find it.
We're grateful for everything you have put out, and keeps us hungry for more in the future. So you're doing fantastic work.
We could talk for a lot longer, but I actually have to get prepared for my show tonight, my IPO Chicago show. So I have to beg off. But
well, hope the IPOs are going good. I wish we could have done another showcase in Liverpool, maybe next year. You're
always invited. And next time you come, I won't have COVID.
Better not.
I know, it was awful. I can't tell you.
Stay away from the massage parlors.
Well, I don't know if I can go that far.
There's some things that he will not cut out. It's all good. Hey, Roger, thanks for being with us here on the show. Episode number 151 of Material Issues.
And put up the website. This is where people need to go to buy Think Like a Key stuff.
Well, I mean, that was my last question for you. I got RogerHoudaille.com. That's a lot of informational, but is there a better place for people to find Think Like a Key? Is that
thinklikeakey.com.
Thinklikeakey.com. Let me I just want to run that along the bottom here so people can see it in the archives as well. Think like a
not hard to remember. Just the label.com. So if you've been watching this, you should be able to find it.
There it is across the bottom. Thinklikeakey.com. Everything we've been talking about. So check it out. Obviously, you can probably find it at all the usual spots as well, the Amazons and Discogs and all kinds of things like that. But Think Like a Key, what a great label. Go out there and pick it up. Pick up everything that we've been talking about here. You will not regret it. And Roger, we wish you the best in the future, and keep doing what you're doing, because we love it. And we know a lot of people that
absolutely. Not only do we love it, but we appreciate it. We appreciate that there are people like you out there doing this.
Thank you. I appreciate what you guys do too. So it's great.
Thank you.
All right, Roger. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon. Be good.
Everyone too. Have a good IPO.
Thanks, Roger.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you go. Yeah,
he is certainly doing. He's doing God's work, music, God's work by putting out this stuff. It really means a lot, and it means a lot to the artists. When I posted about Roger being on, we got a lot of comments by people saying Roger's the best.
Yeah,
and
there's Carla, the cooking CEO.
Well, Carla, thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Yeah. Thank you, Carl Tweed. Yes, indeed.
Carl and Carla liked us.
That's back to back.
Which is not Paul and Paula.
No.
Hey, Carla.
But no, that was a really cool interview, though, and I was just fascinated as to how much he's done in a very short period of time.
Yeah, it really is amazing. So when we're doing episode number 52, the next 520 episodes from now, so 771 or 671, when we have him back on, there'll be like 150 reissues. Cheers.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Bob. Say hello to Bliss for me, and your wife too. It's you could say hi to her too. But
absolutely.
Great.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, Roger. Now it's thinklikeakey.com. Check out the stuff if you're into everything we talked about tonight. That's where you got to go. But great stuff, really great stuff.
Great stuff. So who do we have on next week, Mark?
Well, next week, what's that? That's May 1st. 1st of May already next week. You know what? If you were a kid of the 60s, as David and I were, when I say kid, we're talking kid, not quite teenage years to 70s, but
definitely not quite.
You probably checked out a Saturday morning show called The Banana Splits. And that was Fleego, Bingo, Drooper, and Snork. That was the 4 banana splits.
John Borak, who gave us the names last week.
Right, Borak gave us the names. So you're probably familiar with that show. They were actual actors inside these large animal suits running around while other people did the voiceover work. And of course, if you like the bubblegum pop soundtrack, you probably are familiar with the Tra La La song, which is the 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana. That's the whole Banana Splits thing. Well, one of the actors inside the bingo suit of the Banana Splits, Terrence Winkless, is going to be on our show next Wednesday. He's going to talk about, he had 2 brothers that were in the 2 of the other 3 suits. I believe they're no longer with us, but he's going to talk about that whole experience, which is really interesting. But then he went on to have quite a successful career in writing for television and movies. He directed The Nest, which is a very cool film. So he's going to talk all about that. But I mean, it's not a whole lot of places where you're going to find an interview with Bingo from the Banana Splits. And right here on Material Issues, we're going to do it. So that's cool.
And while we don't have particular guests scheduled on particular dates yet, I can tell you that among those who I'm pretty sure are going to be scheduled fairly soon, how do you know? Because I was in there with them.
Yeah.
And I was traumatized because I was only 10 years old. I can tell you that within the next few weeks, we're going to have somebody related to Think Like a Key, somebody who is one of the artists on the label. And he's one who not only has a bunch of reissues out, but is still putting out contemporary albums, and they're really good. I don't want to mention who it is yet because we don't have the date, but he's coming. And also, I also have a very strong feeling that in the next few weeks, we're going to have somebody who is a member of one of the bands whose record store day issues I got.
Ooh, so if you didn't see the beginning of the show, you're going to have to watch it in the archives and wonder what band David is talking about.
I'll show a very brief glimpse of it.
Oh, I didn't even see that. I'm just hungry for breakfast tomorrow morning.
so very keeping my fingers crossed. But he has told a mutual friend that he's interested in being on.
Cool.
So hopefully we can arrange that. And then, of course, on Wednesday, May 28th, I think it is. Yeah. Well, what's today?
I don't know. Today's the 24th.
And then we have the 1st, 8th, 15th, 22nd, 29th of May. We'll be in Liverpool. at IPO, and so we'll have our IPO Liverpool.
And we'll have to see, because the week prior to that, May 22nd, I'll actually be in Southern California with my girls. So we'll see what we do with a show, if we do it at all.
Maybe we'll
take a break right there. And then,
I don't think we've ever taken a week off, have we?
We've never taken a full week off. You've not been here.
No, wait a minute. Yes, well, no, because even when Dwight Twilley was going to be on and then he didn't, we carried on without him.
Yes.
Didn't we?
Yeah.
I think we did.
We did.
So yeah, we have.
But also June 12th, we didn't. June 12th is booked. That's a Pop Detective Records artist and also a Sony Grammy Award-winning artist. Vivica Sagastad will be on the show with her husband Ken Fox from the Flesh Tones. So we've got Viv and Ken joining us June 12th. That'll be pretty darn awesome.
Yeah, you need to hear Vivica's music too, because some really good pop stuff.
Well, I mean, she won awards with the band Weld in Norway, and then she did 2 solo albums with Sony, and then she ended up on Pop Detective. So it's kind of cool.
No, we won't, Lisa. Well, that's all the encouragement we needed. We're not.
There you go.
One way or the other, even if Mark is busy with his daughters, I'll get maybe hopefully I can get John or somebody. John Borak or someone else to.
We'll figure it out, because I may be at the Magic Castle that Wednesday night, so that'll be fun. I wouldn't be able to really do anything from there because you can't do cell phone inside the Magic Castle. But,
well, you did from Disney though.
Disney, I did, yeah, Disney.
Yeah,
but we're Disney's definitely not on Wednesday. But we'll see. We'll figure it out. It'll all be good. We'll let you know.
We will. But in the meantime, I better get ready for tonight.
All right.
So, I will now bid you a fond adieu.
Tom.
And Vivica, yes, Tom. And we will see you next week with Bingo from the Banana Splits.
Terrence Winkless, Bingo of the Banana Splits, next Wednesday. Material Issues, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Join us.
Absolutely join us. In the meantime, everyone, thanks so much for listening. Have a great rest of your week and weekend. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye from Material Issues, episode number 151. Cheers.